Hello, can you tell us your name today?
Yes, my name is Jade Young, Jadeyoung.
And how do you identify and what are your pronouns?
I am gender nonconforming. My pronouns are she, they.
And when did you discover that you were gender nonconforming? And how did you go about exploring it up to this present day?
I discovered that I was gender nonconforming right before I turned 28 years old. And how I discovered that I was gender nonconforming was by watching different artists that I loved growing up, like David Bowie, Prince, Grace Jones, Annie Lennox. I saw that they were very fluid with how they expressed their gender when they performed on stage, and that just made me realize that's who I was, and that it's okay not to go with um, how society is against gender identity, and how the gender binary is.
Do you have any parents or guardians that you've told about your identity?
I have told my mom.
And how did she take that? Was she accepting at all or disapproving?
She didn't really know what gender nonconforming or even what non-binary was. She's always been very accepting of um, my. I'm queer, so she was always accepting of that. But when it came to my gender identity, she was kind of didn't really know what that was, and I feel like that it's still kind of a question mark in in her head of what exactly, what is, why do I go by they, she kind of doesn't really understand that.
And do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have an older brother and a younger brother.
And do they know about your identity?
They do. My older brother is very accepting. He has been around lots of different people, different groups of people, so he's very accepting and very open. My younger brother, again, didn't realize that um, if you go by they pronouns, it's not just for. He thought that that was only exclusive to trans folk, and I had to educate him on that that's not always the case. That trans folks have specific pronouns that they identify with, unless they're non-binary, and they go by they. But he didn't really understand that concept. So when I told him my gender identity, I feel like he was, again, a question mark. I I definitely felt that I was gender nonconforming when in elementary school we would have to be separated by girl or boy, and I didn't really understand why that was always a concept and why boys were superior and girls weren't. I and also, like, girls who were dressing more mask were definitely teased more, and I never understood that. I just didn't understand why everyone couldn't express themselves freely no matter what they identified with. So I had to deal with internalizing those thoughts, and also as a teenager people were questioning a lot of what I was, and my sexuality, my gender identity, or my sexuality. I kept that very repressed. Honestly, if it was something that I was scrutinized for as a teenager, I probably wouldn't be here. Um, you go through a lot of hate, um, especially like when people don't understand um, who you are as a person. There were times where that those thoughts that I would never be able to be authentically myself would come into my head, but I would still look up to the artists and creators and creative people that I mentioned, just how they performed and how they would just be themselves freely on a stage and in interviews, and even call people out about the toxic ways of society and how people need to live more freely and understand and be more understanding in general. So of course I would doubt, but then I would keep watching those who influenced me as an artist, and I realized that there's nothing to doubt and that this will pass. It's them, not me. I am a writer, I am a dancer, choreographer, I also sing, and I'm an actor as well. If I can make a difference or help somebody with the art that I create, whether it's me writing a script that includes more non binary and gender non conforming characters, or choreographing something that includes dancers who are gender non-conforming or non-binary. I just feel like that's truly important. And again, if you have a platform and you're an artist and creator, I feel like that you have the stage. Might as well tell our story. Tell like again, there are trans folks that are non-binary as well. Tell their story as well.
Do you feel that social media has helped, or do you feel that it's hindered our progress in society's understanding of us?
I feel like it hinders, honestly, the mental state of a lot of non-binary and gender non-conforming people. People are very cruel on social media, and unfortunately, there's no way to monitor it. So a lot of people spew their hate, and there's no repercussions or consequences for it. But what is great is that a lot of people who are spreading the hate, a lot of people are coming back against that and saying no and telling people to stop and using their voices to educate others. And I believe that that's really beautiful. I don't want to give fear power, because I feel like that makes me vulnerable, and I want to still be able to do what I love and be freely and live my life as my authentic self. So I'm not going to give fear power, but there's definitely awareness in this political climate.
If you had the mic to speak to everyone in the world for just a moment and they had to stop and listen to you, to get the world to understand us, what do you want to tell them about us?
What I want to tell them is that we're not going anywhere. We've always been in society. We've always been a part of your lives. We're your relatives, we're your daughters, we're your sons, we're your family. And just because your son or daughter ends up not conforming to the messed up ways of society and the patriarchy of what the gender binary has brought for centuries, you should still love them unconditionally. We need to listen with our ears and open our eyes and be more open-minded. And just because, for example, just because I'm femme, I'm still them.